So my first idea would be to have a little bit taste of where we stand. Would you say European financial sector is competitive on a global level or lags very much behind? Dr. Hengster, if you start.
First of all, thank you for the invitation to join you here today. Europe has, of course, a big and well-developed capital and financial market. But if you compare it with other regions, then you realize that there's still a lot to do, in particular compared with the US or also Asian market. And I would like to highlight 4 or 5 points, and Sabine has already touched one. But one which I think is very, very interesting is if you look at the capital markets, the market capitalization of the stock market in the US versus Europe, it has been around about 2000, 1.2 to 1. It improved then to 2010 to 1.5 to 1. And interestingly today it's 3 to 1. What does this mean? That the capitalization of the stock market in the US is 3 times as big as in Europe, which means 3 times as much money for funding different projects, new initiatives, but also developed companies than in Europe. And it also means, for example, that in Europe the stock market capitalization counts to 60% of the GDP. In the US it's 180%. Another reflection how much more funding liquidity is available in the US. We talked about venture capital briefly. Between 2013 and 23, in the US, they have been able to collect 7 times more in venture capital than in Europe. Another big push and support of developing the venture capital industry. If you look to the corporate world, in Europe it's 20 to 30% using the capital markets. In the US it's 2/3. So it's very clear that these companies have much broader access to different funds sources of funding than European competitors. When you look at the private sector, it's only 20% of people in Europe who invest in the stock market. And this is an issue for the long term. If they get older, as we know, the stock market creates better yields than the credit market. And this is then, of course, to the disadvantage of European retired people. And I'm sure there are many more facts pointing to this one conclusion, that we have to do much more to develop the European capital market. And the last number, if private people would invest only 10% of their wealth in the stock market, and looking at the fact that we have 450 million of people in Europe, this would add up to 8 trillion in funding means, and this means could be used for, again, support the transformation, digitization, and startups, and also developed economies. So another proof that there's a lot to do, but I hope everybody has recognized what is what is ahead of us, and that people are attacking this problem.
Thank you for this first impressive combination of figures showing that there is some lagging behind in capacity, in volume, and in the way of in the investment world and the depth of the financial markets. Philippe, Oddo, your first view on, is European financial sector and capital markets competitive or not?
Let us see the positive aspect of Europe. Yes, we are lagging behind, but it's not any more time to cry. It's a time to act. And we, as Ingrid just said, we have many competitive edge. And one of the most important one is the people of Europe, which are great education, great saving, great capacity to work together, great diversification of culture. And then coming from this world in 1984, at that time the financial sector was very small. It grew, went down after the 2008 crisis. Now it's time to rebound. We have many ideas, many proposals, and I would love to take time to spend time to make proposals.
Well, I'm curious because I see that you have a proposal brought with you for this panel, and we come later on that. But first, Augustin de Romanet, I would like to introduce you with the introductory question, your view on the competitiveness of Europe financial industry.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Perhaps to be concrete, I try to take the image of a football club. Do you know the football club Paris Saint-Germain? The very famous club with a lot of money, a lot of stars, but it's not sure that the stars circulate the ball correctly. It means that this team has not the results corresponding to the potential. For the European financial market, it is the same. We have a lot of stars, investment banks, asset managers, insurances, especially in Germany. We have a lot of talents, as Philippe Oddo mentioned, but we have a problem: we do not cooperate enough. For 7 or 8 years, we had with Frankfurt a kind of competition. It was the competition to attract talents from Great Britain. And then when I joined Paris Europlace, which is an association which gathers 500 members, both corporate and financials, the motto was, "Hurrah, Brexit is there, we will get British talents." And my first reaction was, no, the Brexit is not good news, and we have to promote our talents and to cooperate in Europe. That's the reason why I'm very happy to be there, because I think the financial sector in Europe is absolutely rich in talents, but poor in cooperation, poor in circulation of money within Europe. 300 billion of savings are available each year, and the majority of these liquidities are going to BlackRock, to Vanguard, to finance American VCs, as you've mentioned very pertinently. So, in a nutshell, we have a team of stars, but these stars don't play together.
Thank you very much, Monsieur de Romanet, for this first introductory remarks. So you see, situation is serious. People are optimistic that we will make something out of it. We know about the problems of Paris Saint-Germain, so we sent Kodo Muani to you, but it doesn't work out perfectly. So next time we try better from Eintracht Frankfurt. Sabine Mauderer, I would like to include you in this first round as well, giving us a small taste about how much of optimism you have for the issue of competitiveness.
Well, I'm always extremely optimistic, and since, of course, it is a time of change, and I think every crisis is a chance, and we do have a lot of potential. It's just that we have to use all our chances and to take advantage of what is at stake. And so all what we've heard is not rocket science, right? It's just we have to do it and to collaborate. I think that you said very well. It's not about either Germany or France. It's together. Yeah, let's work out together. And also capital markets. I know a lot of young people. For me, young is below 40. So I know that many the younger generation, let me put it that way, is very much into capital markets and very interested in how can I place my money, can I invest my money, and we've seen a significant number of new accounts, depots open up over the last years, and I think this is very promising. And in addition to that, we see a lot of ideas coming up. Germany, for example, is a world champ or European champion in patents, right? And I think also on the global scale, very much high on the agenda. So it's now up to us to make something out of it, and I think that's not impossible.
Thank you. So now I have some specific points to especially what you are doing, and I start with Augustin de Romanet. You are talking about missing is more cooperation in Europe. If it comes to Finanzplätze, to financial hubs, there is the financial hub of Frankfurt and the financial hub of Paris. Could you imagine, is there a potential for more cooperation, of more profiting from each other being there?
For sure, I think we will take example of some French actors. As you know, Philippe Oddo made a cooperation with BHF, and he did realize a very good, mutually profitable business, creating a Franco-German company very successful. For me, the target of this trip in Frankfurt today, it is the first time the chairman of Europlace is in Frankfurt, Escalité, is to establish a series of working groups on specific topics to be sure that French and German have the same positions, especially in Brussels. As you know, regulation is very often made by, I should say, in a nutshell, bureaucrats who don't know the business. And so you have two categories, people on the business, on the markets, and people on the offices and Commission, European Commission, and sometimes of bodies like EFRAG or ESSB, etc. We have to be sure that the link between the professionals and these bureaucrats' bodies are sufficiently strong to avoid any complexity, any regulation which impeach ourselves to do the business of financing SMEs, financing all the economic system. So I would like to create a yearly meeting with financials in Germany, with the concours of Frankfurt Main Finance. We met the chairman of Frankfurt Main Finance yesterday night, and we agreed to create this forum each year, and I think before the end of 25 we will gather in Paris with many specific topics, allowing us to have the same position. In Europe, we have one money, 27 debts, and I should say several regulations. We must to be sure that we will have a regulation allowing a level playing field for all the European financials. And we have also to be sure that the fact to have 27 debts will not be a handicap vis-à-vis United States in the future.
Okay, so this sounds newly fresh because you just had the rendezvous with Oliver Behrens. So happy to hear that there is more talking, more exchange of views between Paris and Frankfurt, especially on financial regulation. Coming to financial regulation, I know that Philippe Oddo has something special in mind, but first I would like Ingrid Hengster to give you the chance to talk about your ideas. We have now talked for years about Capital Markets Union. Now we see that things are going a little bit more concrete. We have seen the competitive compass. What are your expectations for Capital Markets Union in a more concrete way?
Yeah, I think we said it all. Capital Markets Union has to come. We spoke about the fragmentation. We cannot have 27 countries, and we really have to come to a more unified capital markets approach. And I think as we talk so long about it, you need something very concrete. And for me, securitization is probably the most obvious step to go. Again, we talk about securitization since a long time, but I think there's a big understanding in the EU Commission that this has to come now. And why is it so important? I spoke about the fact that in Europe, still the major part of financings of corporates is done by banks and for Mittelstands companies and also SMEs. And so it's important that banks can put the loans they give to the SMEs and to the Mittelstand, but also to larger corporates, that they can put it into capital markets to free up their balance sheets and be available and be capable again to finance the next round of loans. And I think there is not so much to do. I think it's really more being conscious to make the changes, and it needs some changes on the regulatory level, on the Brussels level, but of course also on the local level things can be done to be comparable and competitive already with other markets like Luxembourg. When I look to Germany, where it's much simpler to do one securitization after the other because you don't have to meet so many regulatory steps to get there. And so the combination of local facilitation and improvements on a regulatory level, on the Brussels level, will provide a big change, and hopefully in this phase, in the next phase of the Commission, will allow us really to make big progress on securitization and thus be much more competitive with the US market.
Thank you very much. While we are speaking right here, Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis is holding a speech in Brussels, presenting the working program of the Commission. We have seen it this morning, and we have seen the final version this morning. There were some changes in the last second, but what not has changed is the plan to have the securitization proposal, so a proposal for reforming securitization in May or June, which is inside that. So it's not long that we will see that, and there is some preparation by Groupe Noyer, by an expert group in France, and by the Knof Gruppe in Germany. So there are already some preparations have been made. Philippe Oddo, you have, if it comes to regulation, some special ideas, if I understand.
At least I would like to take a very concrete example.
Yeah.
MiFID II. I think most of you know this regulation. 10 years after, where do we stand? Where do we stand? The level of commission paid by the investors to invest in European securities is 3.5 billion. 3.5 billion. A third of this commission are paid by American investors. A third of those commissions are paid by British investors or people who are based in London with American money.
Yep.
So we are talking about already a two-thirds. The remaining, it is basically between France and Germany only less than 15% together. So what does that mean? That the local investors investing in European equities have a very, very small amount of money to invest and to buy the research coming from the street. Basically, what happened? The local and the European brokers were not able anymore to afford to invest in research analysts, and the number of research analysts decreased by 50%. And the asset manager had to pay with their own money, with their own P&L, the research. So basically, the investors in the US, in the UK, they didn't have to implement the MiFID II, but the local investors had to. So what is important to say? The current situation is a very uncompetitive advantage for the broker and their investors in Europe. So it's time to act. It's time to go to Brussels, to Brussels, and to explain what can happen with a wrong regulation. I think it's time to say we can to reconsider how we can work with the business model to promote the research. Because at the end of the day, Sabine, as you said, our job is to promote the European companies to American and British investors, because the money is there. And if we cannot afford anymore to promote those companies, who is going to do it? Not the big bulge markets, I would say American bulge markets.
Thank you.
Because they don't want to go deep in detail with small and mid-cap. So what we have to do is to reconsider how can we be at the center of the promotion of the expertise in Europe to the American investors. It's a just very concrete example that, yes, the European Commission has an impact. Yes, it's time to say, hey guys, you have to see which kind of impact, but let us change, let us act, and let us see how we can cooperate, because from what I understand, the timing is good. Madame von der Leyen has clearly said it's time to simplification, and I think it's simplification, but not only simplification. Let us think about business model to help the financial industry to go forward.
Thank you very much. And now I'm challenged as the Brussels reporter. The good news is they are rethinking about research on bundling and MiFID II. The bad thing is they don't rethink it in the way you have presented it at the moment. So you have some ways to go, some talks are necessary to change a little bit direction. But I think you're totally right. There is a window of opportunity which is open because there is a willing of changing things which are not helping competitiveness. Sabine Mauderer, I would like to ask you on a specific aspect as well, which is capital market culture, because we didn't have this by now. So we can have regulation, we can have everything, but if we have the Deutsche Sparer in the way it is at the moment and his mindset, then it's very difficult to come up with some capital markets products. So what would you think? What is important to talk about and to bring up forward in this issue?
Yeah, so I think you listen to all of you and having read all of the documents about capital market and the need for deepening it, it's not that we do not know how it would work, it's just, to do it. And so the main question is, why don't we do it what we know and that we know it's so crucial? I think the answer is because we do not have the culture to do it. And so what I think is crucial, that's what you mentioned, is to having a capital market culture. So the question is, how do we create a capital market culture? And for me, I usually like to have a look to Sweden. So if you have a look at Sweden and you see that Sweden is a relatively, in comparison to bigger European countries, small economy, but Sweden is the European champion when you look at the number of listed companies that are small or medium sized. So the most listed companies that are small and medium sized come from Sweden. So now you're asking yourself, why is this the case? And I think the case, and I think there are studies that show that, is because in the 90s, Sweden started to implement a capital market-based pension scheme. So part of the amount of the fees you pay into your pension system is invested in the capital market. This has been quite successful. The AP7 funds and other funds are doing quite well. So, and the secondary effect is that within the broad society, you have established a culture for invest your money in capital markets. And the other effect is that then also it is much easier for companies to get funding through listing. So I think it's a positive way of a circle, right? Once you start with everyone spending money on a crucial thing like pension, then you start the whole circle of what is needed. So I think it is crucial in Europe, and now talking about my country, crucial to really have a starting point of allowing part of the pension fund being invested in capital market.
Yeah, you mentioned that you talk about the country you know best because pension system, this is a national issue. For Dr. Hengster, we have a Bundestagswahl just a few days ahead of us. What are your expectations if it comes to the pension reform? I mean, we were close to something, and then we have a very disruptive end of this coalition, so it's now pending. What are your expectations for the new government?
Yeah, you point to the right thing. Yes, we have been very close with the Generationenkapital, and reading the different programs of the different parties, I'm very optimistic that we will get something, maybe in a different form and shape, but I think everybody has recognized that pension schemes to allow for big pension funds, let it be private or state-oriented, and you can have different forms how to subsidize it and when to start at a very early age of children or later. But this is one of the key elements to establish well-functioning capital markets. And you look to Sweden, but you can look to the UK, you can look to the Netherlands, you have it everywhere. And everywhere where you have these big pension schemes, there's much more affinity to investing in the capital markets. So I'm very optimistic that we'll see an element of this coming with the new government. When it comes to culture, I would like to add a second element, which I think is extremely helpful to establish this culture of investing. This is financial education. When I go to schools in the UK, but also in the US, very often I hear that very young children already learn about business plans and how to invest and what it means if you make a profit, but also what it means if you lose your money, and you get very easily familiar with the world of investing. And having a bit more on that end, and I think here also the banks can play a contribution and help with educating in schools. This is a very important element in addition to these pension schemes to make it much more natural in the future that you do investments in whatever form.
Thank you. Monsieur de Romanet, we have today to expect that the German Finanzplatz will present a release, something called Finanzplatzkabinett. So giving a little bit thoughts, what is urgent now? If you can mirror that for the French perspective, what is key for Europlace, Paris Europlace at the moment? Is it mobilizing European capital? Is it mobilizing French capital? Is it fighting against regulation, which is difficult? So where are your key work at the moment?
Everything you've said is correct. We have to do all that. But generally speaking, we have to be conscious that we are in front of a wall, and this wall is common. It is the demography wall. There is an hysteresis. It means a difference of consciousness between the situation of demography. We are all in Europe under the rate of replacement of generations, and people didn't realize that. Didn't realize that for their pensions, they will have to save money because they can't continue to consider that the system which allows people to consider that the workers will pay their pensions, it will not continue. So we have to educate, it's very important, people to save money for their pensions. And for sure, we have to organize the liquidity of the European financial market to allow European savings to finance European companies. I don't remember who said that the eighth marvel of the world was capitalization. If you do not have access to capitalization, you can't have any wealth in your life. And the problem of today is that we have a fragmentation of conditions. You know, when Alexis de Tocqueville went in the United States in 1831, he wrote a book whose name was La démocratie en Amérique. And in this book, he did explain that democracy was equalization of conditions. It was 1830. After the Second World War, you had globalization. It was equalization of aspirations. Every rich people in Chile or in Russia wanted Lamborghini, Gucci bags, etc. But today, with 30 years of very low interest rates, we have fragmentation of conditions. It means either you have access to capital, and you have access to capitalization, and you can be wealthy, either you have just your salary to live, and you stay in the same position. So it's not possible to continue in this fragmentation of conditions. And if we do not have a lot of political concerns, we have to educate to widespread capitalization and to educate our population. And I agree with you with the fact that young generations are very talented, and we can try to help them to create a dynamic financial market in Europe, helping to avoid all these concerns you express.
Thank you, merci. So we are coming to the finale already. If I can ask you to prioritize a little bit so that we get something out as an abstract of this discussion. If you talk about competitiveness of European financial sectors, what is for you ahead of at the top of the agenda? So what you mentioned a lot of points, but if you have now to prioritize and maybe talking about, is this the longer term targets or is this the low-hanging fruits as we heard before in the sustainability discussion? I would like to start with you, Philippe Oddo. If you could give us, well, very much in my focus is...
Okay, maybe I'm going to try to make some priorities. I think the number one priority, above all, is to encourage the European people to invest in equity. That's the number one priority. The number two is to help the banks to be more competitive, and the biggest and the most simple way to do it is through securitization, and mainly securitization in real estate. Because the balance sheet of the banks in Europe represent 4 times GDP. In the US, 1 time. Number three, we have to work with the European Commissions not only to decrease the complexity, but to help them to understand the business model of the financial industry. Let us be proud of our financial industry, and let us focus with an ecosystem which can help the financial industry for the growth of the country. That's my main priorities.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Hengster.
then I continue, and it's very obvious we're all sitting in the same boat. I would also like to start with Capital Markets Union and with one low-hanging fruit, which is the securitization, as we discussed it earlier, because it will really give so much more leverage to banks and thus to the industry and to the economy. The second point for me is really the creation of pension schemes funded by capital markets to create wealth for our population in the long term. And the third one, it's a bit of everything, which is the capital markets culture, which we have to make more, we have to experience much broader, and has to become very natural across all ages, from children to retired people, making sure that we're all familiar with investing and taking the capital markets much more serious than we've done it in the past. But I'm optimistic.
Thank you. Sabine Mauderer.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm also very optimistic, and I think for me it's crucial that we become competitive once again in Europe. I think that we increase our productivity, that we allow growth, and I think this is only possible if we create or get back to failure culture, that we allow to, and I think at these days it's very important to say that we allow also talents to migrate to our countries and to stay diverse and open-minded, and I think this is the only way to stay competitive in these very challenging times.
Thank you. Augustin de Romanet.
What is your question? What is your question?
Your main priorities.
Your main priorities, if you, in a nutshell, would prioritize
What is most
and say
important
we have
for you?
talked about different points, but what is the real one?
Maybe the Franco-German working together.
So I have so many priorities that I will prioritize my priorities. So I think that to establish a German-Franco dialogue is very important for me today, and that is the reason why I think we will capitalize on all the meetings we had yesterday and today to establish a working group to promote in Brussels all the ideas we have today. We did express today, I'm very impressed by the fact that we have exactly the same problems. We have the same demographic situations. But as Philippe Oddo told me yesterday night, French people don't read German. So French journalists don't read German newspapers. I guess it is the same for German journalists. I'm not sure that they read the French newspapers. So that's the reason why we use English to speak together. And I think that financials have to speak much more than in the previous times. And I'm very happy to try to work for that.
Thank you very much. To get rid of a misunderstanding, all German journalists every morning firstly start with Les Echos. No missing that. Thank you very much for this perfect panel. Thank you for the panelists in Brussels. I'm moderating a lot of panels. There I'm asking questions, I get no answers. Here I ask questions, I get answers. This is a nice experience for a journalist. Thank you for this very nice experience. And if you allow the other three that I personally thank you, Augustin de Romanet. We love to see you in Frankfurt. We love your exchange with Frankfurt Main Finance. I think that is a very good idea. And if this was the purpose to be here, then we say merci d'être là. Quel plaisir vous trouver à Francfort. Merci. Bien.
C'est très bien.